Alright, this is going to be the Unit 7 test review, and we're going to start with 1A. So what we're going to be doing for the A's is adding or subtracting. So we're just going to be combining like terms. So the first thing we need to do is notice that this is going to be subtracting, which means there's really a -1 right there that we're going to have to distribute. So this first set of parentheses is going to stay the same. It'll be 3 minus 5x minus 7x squared. But the second set of parentheses, we're going to multiply everything by a -1. It's going to become a plus in between. -1 times 3x squared is -3x squared. -1 times +1 is -1. -1 times -6x is +6x. So now I just need to find my like terms. So let's start with the highest exponent, which is the x squared. So -7x squared, that's a like term with -3x squared. So I'm going to write those two together. -7x squared minus 3x squared. Then next up I have the x's, so -5x and +6x. So I'm going to write those together. And then last I have my constant, so that's a 3. And then this -1. So +3 minus 1. So then we're going to combine these, and our final answer here, -7 minus 3, it's going to be -10. And then your exponent's going to stay the same. It's just going to be x squared still. -5x plus 6x is +1x. -3 minus 1 is +2. So -10x squared plus 1x plus 2 would be our final answer. All right, for 1b, we're going to do the same thing. And again, we have a negative here, so I need to put a -1. And we're going to distribute that before we can start. So the first set of parentheses is going to stay the same. 2 minus 3x minus 9x squared. Then we have -1 times 3x squared. Put a plus in between. So this will become -3x squared. -1 times 5 is -5. And -1 times -7x is +7x. Then we find our like terms. So I'm going to start with the x squared. So I have -9x squared and -3x squared. So -9x squared minus 3x squared. Then I'm going to have my x's, so -3x and +7x. And then last, I'm going to have the constant, so a 2 and a -5. So +2 minus 5. So then my final answer here, -9 minus 3 is -12x squared. -3x plus 7x is +4x. 2 minus 5 is -3. So that would be our final answer for this one. All right, now we're going to simplify, and on this one we are just multiplying. Notice how there's no plus or minus in between. That's how you know you're going to multiply. So I'm going to make the box. And then I'll go ahead and put my terms. So for the first one we have 3x and a +5. For the second one I have an x and a negative 6. And then we're just going to multiply them. So 3x times x, remember that's really a 1 in front here. So 3 times 1 is 3. X times x is x squared. Then I have 1x times 5, which is just 5x. Then I have negative 6 times 3x is negative 18x. Then negative 6 times 5 is negative 30. And I'm going to go ahead and look at this diagonal. Those should be like terms, which they are. So we can go ahead and write our final answer is 3x squared. I'm going to combine the two on the diagonal. So negative 18x plus 5x is negative 13x minus 30. Now we're going to do the same thing on this one. So I'm going to start with the box. So on top, I'm going to have a 2x minus 1. On the side, I'm going to have a 4x minus 8. So when I multiply 2x times 4x is 8x squared. 4x times negative 1 is negative 4x. 2x times negative 8 is negative 16x. And then negative 8 times negative 1, remember a negative times a negative would be a positive. So that would be a positive 8. Then we look at the diagonal. Those are like terms, so we can go ahead and combine those to get our final answer, which would be 8x squared negative 16x plus negative 4x is negative 20x. Then we have plus 8. All right, for 3, we're going to have another combining like terms. So I'm going to start with my highest exponent, which is this x to the 4th. So I have negative 4x to the 4th and negative 3x to the 4th. The reason we don't have to distribute on this one is because we have a plus in between instead of a minus. So I'm just going to go ahead and write these. Negative 4k to the 4th minus 3k to the 4th. Then I'll move on to my squared, so 3k squared and negative 14k squared. So plus 3k squared minus 14k squared. And then all I have left is the constant. So I have a 14 and I have a negative 8. So plus 14 minus 8, which means the final answer is negative 4 minus 3 is negative 7k to the 4th. 3 minus 14, it's going to be negative 11k squared. And then 14 minus 8, that's going to be a 6. So that's our final answer. All right, same thing on this one. We're going to start with our highest exponent, which is going to be to the 5th power. So I have 13x to the 5th and 15x to the 5th. Then I have 6x to the 3rd. Oh wait, just sitting. The 4ths are next. So it's going to be negative x to the 4th and 7x to the 4th. Then I have 6x to the 3rd and 6x to the 3rd. So when I combine these, 13x to the 5th plus 5x to the 5th is 18x to the 5th. Negative x to the 4th plus 7x to the 4th. Remember, this is really a 1. So that would be 6x to the 4th. And then 6x to the 3rd plus 6x to the 3rd is 12x to the 3rd. And that's our answer. All right, on 4a, we're multiplying a binomial by a trinomial. So we have 2 terms here, 3 terms here. That means we need a 3 by 2 box instead of a 2 by 2 box. I'm going to put the one with 3 terms on top. So that'll be 6a squared minus a plus 2. And then on the side, I'm going to have 4a plus 2. So then we're going to multiply these together. 6a squared times 4a is 24a to the 3rd. 4a times negative a is negative 4a squared. 4a times 2 is 8a. 6a squared times 2 is 12a squared. 2 times negative a is negative 2a. And 2 times 2 is 4. So I just got to look at these diagonals to combine them. So we have 24a to the 3rd. That does not have any like terms. Then I'm going to combine 12a squared and negative 4a squared to get 8a squared. Then I have 8a plus negative 2a. So 8a minus 2a is 6a. The 4 doesn't have a like term, so we just put plus 4. And that's our answer for that one. All right, same thing here. We need another 3 by 2 box. So we're going to have k squared minus 2k plus 7. And then we're going to have 7k minus 3. When I multiply, 7k times k squared is 7k to the 3rd. 7k times negative 2k is negative 14k squared. 7k times 7 is 49k. Negative 3 times k squared is negative 3k squared. Negative 3 times negative 2k is positive 6k. And negative 3 times 7 is negative 21. So we have diagonals. And our answer here would be 7k to the 3rd. Combine these diagonals, so 3k squared plus negative 14k squared is negative 17k squared. 49k plus 6k, that's going to be 55k. And then we have minus 21. All right, 5a, we have the length of a rectangle is 5x plus 2. The width of a rectangle is 9x minus 4. What is the area of the rectangle? So we know area equals length times width. So what we're going to have to do is multiply 5x plus 2 times 9x minus 4. So I use my box to multiply. So I'm going to have 5x plus 2, 9x minus 4. When I multiply, 9x times 5x is 45x. 9x times 2 is 18x. 5x times negative 4 is negative 20x. And negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Look at the diagonal. You have 20x and 18x. Oops, I messed up here. This should be 45x squared. So our final answer would be 45x squared. Negative 20 plus 18. That would be negative 2x. Then we have minus 8. So that would be the area of our rectangle. Same thing with this one. Area is still length times width, so we're going to be multiplying 3x minus 1 and 7x minus 6. So here's our box. On top, I'm going to have 3x minus 1. On the side, I'm going to have 7x minus 6. When I multiply, 7x times 3x is 21x squared. 7x times negative 1 is negative 7x. Negative 6 times 3x is negative 18x. And negative 6 times negative 1 is positive 6. So here's our diagonal that we're going to combine, which means our final answer is 21x squared. Negative 18x minus 7x, negative 25x, plus 6. Okay, for this last one, we're going to be using a graph, and we have to identify all of these things. So let's start with the vertex. That's going to be this very bottom point. So we need the coordinates of that very bottom point. And if we zoom in to look, the x value is right there at 0. So the x is going to be at 0, and then we can see that the y is at negative 9. So our vertex is going to be 0 for x, negative 9 for y. Now the axis of symmetry, that's going to be the line that goes through the vertex that cuts this graph in half. So you notice it's just going to be the x of whatever a vertex is. So it's going to be x equals 0. And your axis of symmetry is always x equals some number. Now the roots or solutions or zeros or x-intercepts, so it can be called any of those names, that's going to be where it hits this x-axis. So that's going to be right here and right here. So if it's an x-intercept, we know the y has to be 0, and we can see the x is at negative 3, and then there's one at positive 3. So our answer is going to be negative 3, 0, and positive 3, 0. All right. Then we have the y-intercept. That's where it hits the y-axis. We can see it's right here. In this case, it's going to be the same as the vertex. It will not always be the same, though. So our y-intercept would be 0, negative 9. Now max or min. So anytime it's shaped like a U, like this, that's going to have a minimum value. So this one would be a min. Domain for these is always going to be all real numbers. And then last we have our range. We know range is going to be a y. And we know range is going to use the y of our vertex. So it's going to have a -9. Then we just have to look and see, is every y value greater than -9 or is every y value less than -9? And all of them are greater than, since it's going up like that. So it's going to be greater than or equal to -9. So anytime it has a minimum, it's going to be greater than. Now this one doesn't have a max, but for it to be a maximum, if it were an upside down U, that's when it would have a maximum. All right, same thing again. So vertex is this very bottom point down here. If you can see, the x value in this case is at 3. Then our y values at -9. So 3, -9 is our vertex. The axis of symmetry goes through our x value, so it's going to be x equals whatever this x value is, which is 3. The y-intercepts are where it hits the x-axis. Sorry, x-intercepts, zeros, root solutions, all those things, where it hits the x-axis, which is these two pink points. So in this case, it would be 0, 0, and 6, 0. The y-intercept, that is going to be where it hits the y-axis. So in this case, it would be right here. It's the same as the x-intercept. It's going to be at 0, 0. This one again is shaped like a U, so we know it's going to be a minimum. Your domain, all real numbers. And then last, our range is going to be y. We know it's going to use the y of your vertex, which is -9. And since it has a minimum, it's going to be y is greater than or equal to -9. If it has a maximum, it would have been less than or equal to whatever your vertex was. And that is it for this